The sky above was a kaleidoscope of colors, violet swirled with emeralds, streaked with ribbons of gold, as though the universe itself was about to tear open. The city of Aurelios, set on the edge of a shattered moon, sprawled before her, a labyrinth of towering spires and gleaming platforms that seemed to defy all laws of gravity. It was a marvel of alien architecture, a place where even light seemed to bend and twist in ways that would leave a human mind reeling. Alien species of every conceivable shape and form moved through the streets in a quiet, mechanical harmony. Crystalline beings shimmered, their bodies pulsing with the light of distant stars, while gaseous entities drifted, occasionally forming abstract shapes before dissipating. A towering insectoid with jagged exoskeletons moved through the crowd, its many legs clicking with an eerie rhythm. All around, beings of unimaginable forms communicated, their voices not audible but sensed deep within the minds of others. Thoughts, ideas, feelings transmitted without words. This was a place where no one seemed alone, a place where every alien was an accepted part of the vast tapestry of life. Yet there, standing on the edge of it all, was a girl, human, her form, so delicate compared to the overwhelming presence of these creatures, stood in stark contrast against a vast, glowing city. Her eyes, wide with fear and longing, scanned the room, each face around her an unfamiliar mystery. The room grew quiet as she spoke. I beg you, her voice trembled, filled with an intensity that sent ripples through the air. Please don't leave me alone. Her plea echoed to the Grand Council Hall, a place carved out of ancient starships and celestial ruins, its hollow corridors a silent witness to centuries of history. And in this moment, her plea wasn't just for survival. It was for something far deeper. The alien girl's form flickered faintly in the dim light, her skin translucent with faint glowing symbols that pulsed with each breath, as if she were not entirely of this world. This was no ordinary plea. It was a desperate cry from a species teetering on the edge of extinction. Yet, to a human standing in this room, the idea of such a desperate connection seemed almost impossible. But how could they understand? A human, someone who had barely understood their own existence, was now in the midst of a cosmic crisis. A species so unfamiliar to them, so alien that it felt like a distant dream. The girl's words hung in the air like an alien melody. Please, don't leave me alone. As the girl's plea echoed through the room, a ripple of silence fell over the gathered beings. And yet, the humans, standing on the outside, exchanged wary glances. Could such a thing happen? Could a single human, so fragile compared to these mighty beings, truly be needed in this vast galaxy of unimaginable creatures? One human in the back leaned in and whispered under his breath, "This can't be real. Humans are nothing here. We don't belong in a place like this." But even as the words left his mouth, the weight of the moment pressed in, and he couldn't help but feel the impossible weight of her request. Her words weren't just a plea for life. They were a plea for meaning, for connection, for something beyond the cold, silent isolation of space that no being, no matter how powerful, could escape. But as the silence stretched and every alien eye turned to her, one thought began to take shape. What if this human girl could change everything? Could she, against all odds, find a place in a galaxy where humanity was nothing more than a footnote? Zara, the last human on this strange alien world, stepped into the council chamber with a nonchalant stride. Her oversized jacket, a worn and weathered relic from Earth, hung loosely around her shoulders, its sleeves too long as if it had once belonged to someone much taller. She looked entirely out of place among the gathered alien dignitaries, who were draped in ceremonial robes woven from rare materials only found in the deepest corners of the galaxy. She wasn't like them. While the alien leaders stood, regal and composed, whispering in their incomprehensible tongues, Zara was sprawled across a plush chair, slouching as if she were waiting for a bus back on Earth. One of her legs dangled over the armrest, a stark contrast to the poised postures of the others in the room. She absent-mindedly fiddled with her fingers, tapping out a rhythm that no one else could hear, but she didn't care. Her bright eyes, still full of the curiosity that had guided her through every impossible situation, flicked around the room. The strange, gelatinous beings who communicated through iridescent pulses, the insectoid representatives, their mandibles clicking with impatience, the gaseous entities, flickering in and out of the air like clouds of smoke, hovering silently in the corners. And yet, Zara felt no fear. "Zara, do you not want to prepare for the meeting?" A nearby alien asked in its low, warbling voice. Zara looked up, her face split into a wide grin as she took a swig from a mug of coffee she'd found somewhere. "Prepare? Nah, I'm good. Just want to see what kind of weirdness I'm dealing with this time," she said casually, letting the steam from her mug curl upwards like a tiny storm. Her words hung in the air, awkward and out of place, but they made the surrounding alien leaders exchange confused glances. While they sharpened their minds and polished their knowledge of centuries-old traditions, Zara's preparation was far from conventional. She didn't have ancient rituals or advanced mental techniques. Instead, she pulled out a small holographic screen, flicked through a few pages of Earth's pop culture trivia, and proceeded to quiz herself on the latest human memes. Who would win in a fight? A rock or a potato? She muttered to herself, only half aware that she was being watched. A few gasps echoed around the room as the alien representatives shifted in unease. It was almost as if her very existence was a mockery of their traditions. Her human quirks, her casual demeanor, her complete lack of reverence for their ways. They had expected her to be some perfect, mind-altering strategist or a powerful force to reckon with. Not whatever this was. One of the more dignified creatures, a tall, ethereal being with translucent skin and glowing eyes, stepped forward, its voice like the soft hum of distant stars. "Zara of Earth, are you prepared for the trials ahead?" Zara simply shrugged, her grin widening. "Sure, why not? I've had worse days." The aliens stared at her in disbelief. They had expected a leader, a savior, or at the very least a person with some form of grace or poise. Not this. Zara's unpretentiousness, her humanity, was like a cosmic slap in the face to everything they had come to expect from the intergalactic elite. Yet there was something undeniably captivating about her. She was a human anomaly, a wild card that neither they nor she could predict. Zara stood on the edge of the vast alien council hall, feeling the eyes of 1,000 species pierce through her, their collective judgment like an invisible weight on her shoulders. The room buzzed with unspoken tension, an undercurrent of anticipation that seemed to hang in the air, thick as smoke. At the center of the room, a floating platform shimmered, casting an ethereal light on the one figure that everyone had gathered to see. The Elder Neela, the ancient leader of the Galactic High Council, was unlike any being Zara had ever encountered. Her body was an intricate web of iridescent tendrils, her thoughts communicating in pulses of light rather than words. She was both revered and feared, a symbol of the old ways, the last vestige of the time when power came only from purity, discipline, and tradition. And Zara was a reminder of everything that had been forgotten, everything that the Galactic Empire had tried so hard to distance itself from. "Zara of Earth," Elder Neela's voice echoed to the hall, a calm and chilling sound that sent shivers down Zara's spine. "You stand here today, not as a representative of your species, but as an anomaly, a spectacle, a curiosity that should have never made it this far." Zara's hands tightened around the cup of coffee she had somehow smuggled into the meeting. She had never felt more out of place in her life, but there was no turning back now. This was the moment that would decide whether humanity would be accepted into the galactic community or cast aside forever. "Do you understand the weight of what you are asking?" Elder Neela continued, her tendrils undulating with an unsettling grace. "The trials you will face are not for the faint of heart. You will be pitted against beings whose skills have been honed over millennia, against the Mandeller, creatures who can manipulate gravity itself, and the Theravii, who communicate through thought patterns capable of disorienting entire fleets." Zara took a deep breath, letting the weight of her situation settle. Every fiber of her being screamed in doubt. She wasn't prepared for this. She had no training, no history, nothing to offer except her own humanity. But it was that very humanity that she would fight for. Her odds were impossible. Everyone knew that. Even the Galactic Council had placed her in the 0% chance category, and Zara could feel their disbelief in her presence like a cold draft. They didn't think she stood a chance. They didn't think any human could ever hold their ground among these immortal, perfected species. Zara couldn't suppress a small, defiant grin. If they thought she was a joke, she'd show them the power of unpredictability. Zara of Earth. Elder Neela's eyes flickered, revealing a rare hint of amusement. You may be small, weak, and your species' only legacy so far is chaos. But what you ask for is more than just survival. It is integration into a society that has existed long, before your kind was even a thought in the stars. Zara locked eyes with the elder, her heart pounding. It's just like back home, she thought, swallowing the lump in her throat. There's always someone telling me I'm not good enough, that I don't belong, but I'll prove them wrong. I always do. If you truly wish to survive, Elder Neela intoned, you must face me, the test of your worthiness to represent Earth. A fight, one-on-one, a demonstration of your resilience and adaptability. It will be unlike anything you have ever known. And if you lose, your entire race will be barred from the galactic stage forever. The words hung in the air like an execution sentence. Zara clenched her fist, staring at the ancient being. Elder Neela's reputation was legendary, as was her combat prowess. To face her meant near certain destruction. But Zara wasn't like the others. She didn't have centuries of tradition behind her, nor did she have powers honed through endless training. What she did have was something far more dangerous, a human's will to survive. The challenge had been set. Zara knew she had no choice but to fight. But she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for humanity's place among the stars. Fighting to prove that sometimes unpredictability and heart could overcome millennia of tradition. As the council hall erupted into murmurs and whispers, Zara's eyes hardened with resolve. It was time to show them what humans were really capable of. Zara had never been one to conform. As the Galactic High Council prepared for Grand Assembly, where she was expected to plead humanity's case for acceptance, she stood alone in the corner of the preparation room, far from the prying eyes of her competitors. Her preparation was nothing short of peculiar. While the other delegates, beings of advanced civilizations, meditated, adjusted their energy fields, or polished their ancient relics, Zara simply snacked. Sitting cross-legged on the cold metallic floor, she unwrapped a packet of protein bars from Earth, a foreign scent filling the air that immediately caught the attention of a few nearby Theravii. Their luminous, gelatinous bodies shivered in the absence of the smells they were accustomed to, confused by the earthly scent. Zara, you do know we're about to represent humanity in front of the most ancient beings in the universe, right? A voice from behind her, the sleek, silver-skinned Theravii delegate, asked with an eyebrow raised in disbelief. Zara glanced over at him, her mouth full of the protein bar. She swallowed and smiled, brushing the crumbs off her lap. Of course. I'll just need to have some energy for the speeches, you know? Can't go in hungry. And trust me, it's going to be one speech, she said, giving a mischievous wink. The Theravii, who could send ripples of thought and light with a glance, blinked, clearly perplexed. Is it a human ritual? Zara shrugged, popping another bite of her bar. Sure, let's call it that. She tapped her temple dramatically. The secret to human greatness: snack first, conquer later. As she continued snacking, the gas-based Arcones delegates floating nearby exchanged glances. Their translucent bodies shimmered with fluctuating light patterns, a response that Zara could only guess was their form of laughter. Zara, completely unbothered by the strange looks, leaned back against the wall and pulled out a small holographic screen. Instead of engaging in deep political strategy or studying the minds of the galactic elite like the others, Zara casually flipped through a series of funny memes from Earth, sending them to her friends back home. She chuckled to herself, sending one final message. Feeling good about this whole thing. No pressure, right? Then she pocketed her phone. Everything will be fine, right? She mumbled to herself, adjusting her worn hoodie, the sleeves still slightly too long for her arms. Her human quirk, wearing clothes that weren't properly tailored, was as out of place in this setting as a fish out of water. But that was Zara's style. Unpredictable, casual, and determined to remain authentic even when surrounded by beings that embody perfection and formality. Her nonchalance made the others nervous. In a universe where every species was groomed from birth to uphold ancient traditions, Zara's refusal to take things seriously was almost unnerving. As a group of fierce-looking Mandela warriors strode past her, their bodies distorting gravity in graceful movements, one of them paused and gave Zara an inquisitive look. with mischievous grin. She lifted her bar in a mock salute. "Hey, you want one?" she asked. "I'm told these things pack quite a punch." The Mandeller, whose primary means of communication was gravitational fluctuations, blinked in what could only be described as confusion. Without saying a word, they simply continued their path, leaving Zara to chuckle to herself. "Guess they're not into carbs," she mused. It was moments like these, when Zara was entirely herself, that made the tension in the room almost bearable. While the other delegates prepared for the intense, world-shaking speech they would deliver in front of the Galactic Council, Zara remained unapologetically, amusingly human. "Maybe I'll throw in a joke or two," she thought aloud, just loud enough for a nearby holographic projection of a council member to overhear. Make him laugh before the big speech. Always works on Earth. And though her antics seemed trivial, Zara couldn't help but think, maybe this was the very thing that would make her stand out despite everything stacked against her. If there was one thing humanity knew how to do, it was to adapt and keep moving forward, even when everyone else doubted them. As she finished the last of the protein bar, she glanced around the room at the bewildered, powerful beings who towered over her both physically and intellectually. She stood out like a sore thumb, but in the back of her mind, Zara knew something they didn't. She'd never back down, and it was that simple human defiance that might just be her greatest strength. Zara stood on the holographic stage, facing her first opponent, a creature of terrifying proportions, a Baroquian war titan, towering over 7 meters tall, with armored scales that seemed to shimmer with an ancient power. The titan cracked his knuckles, each movement sending tremors through the arena. His eyes, glowing a furious red, locked onto Zara with disdain. The crowd, a cacophony of whispers and exclamations, murmured in disbelief. The Baroquian had never lost. His reputation was legendary. Unyielding, impenetrable, a warrior bred for centuries to conquer every opponent. And here was Zara, a human girl, no bigger than his foot, stepping up to face him. The traditionalists in the audience, beings of all shapes and sizes, waited for Zara to bow her head in defeat before the match even began. Zara's response? A casual stretch. "All right, let's see what you've got, big guy," she said, her voice so casual it made her opponent pause. The audience fell silent. They'd never seen someone talk to a Baroquian this way. With a roar, the Titan lunged forward, his massive claws swiping through the air. Zara ducked, rolling out of the way with surprising agility, then sprang to her feet. Okay, that was close," she muttered under her breath. "But you're going to have to do better than that." As the Baroquian ready for another strike, Zara pulled out something that made everyone's jaw drop, a laser pointer. The crowd collectively gasped as she clicked it on, aiming the red squarely at the Baroquian's eyes. The Titan paused, disoriented by the sudden flash of light. His massive frame shuddered with confusion. The Baroquian growled, tried to swipe at the light, his claws missing by inches as he swiped at the air. Zara chuckled, bouncing on her feet. "Does that get under your skin?" she called, clicking the laser again. The Titan's movements grew more erratic, his colossal form stumbling about like a drunken dancer trying to chase down the elusive. The audience, initially stunned, burst into laughter. Zara's unconventional tactics were turning the entire match into a spectacle, and the Titan didn't know how to handle it. The ancient warrior had no training for this, no wisdom to deal with something so simple, yet so baffling. The crowd roared as Zara continued to toy with him, effortlessly dodging each of his clumsy swipes. Finally, with one well-placed flick of her wrist, Zara redirected the laser to a small, high-energy target in the arena, a glowing sphere suspended just above the Baroquian's head. The Titan lunged forward, trying to grab it, only to find himself disqualified when he stepped outside of the arena's boundaries. The crowd went wild as Zara, grinning from ear to ear, jumped in victory. As she strolled off the stage, still holding the laser pointer, she heard an alien voice echo from the stands. "Is she serious?" "Oh, I'm very serious," Zara said aloud, giving a mock bow to the cheering crowd. Her next match was against a different kind of opponent, a siphonet, a creature made entirely of swirling mist and dark energy, capable of draining the life force of anything it touched. The crowd had seen these creatures annihilate entire armies with a single touch. Zara didn't even break a sweat. Instead of facing the Siphonant head-on, Zara spent the first few minutes of the match circling the arena, weaving in and out of the energy-based entity's range. The Siphonant, bound by its instincts, lashed out, its tendrils of mist snaking toward Zara in an attempt to drain her life force. But Zara, seemingly more focused on something else, pulled out a small portable fan and began pointing it at the Siphonant. The creature howled in frustration as its form began to destabilize under the wind's interference. It tried to shift its form, but Zara simply increased the fan speed, sending powerful gusts at the swirling energy. "You need to chill out," Zara said, her voice dripping with sarcasm as the Siphonant struggled to reform. Within moments, the creature dissipated in a cloud of ethereal gas. The crowd watched wide-eyed as Zara casually strolled to the center of the arena and raised her arms in victory. "That was too easy," she said, before winking at the stunned officials who had been overseeing the match. "Next time, bring me something challenging." Zara's methods were unconventional, but they were working. She was leaving behind a trail of baffled competitors and confused officials, as each of her opponents faced defeat in the most unexpected ways. Instead of following tradition or battling with overwhelming force, she'd managed to outwit and outplay every single one of them with tactics so bizarre they couldn't even be considered combat. As the final match approached, Zara stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her hoodie and brushing off her pants, looking every bit the underdog in this contest. "Ready to do this?" she asked herself, before a grin spread across her face. "Yeah, I think I am." Her next opponent? The leader of the Galactic Council, an ancient being with untold powers. Zara's final words to herself before stepping into the arena were simple: "Game on." And with that, she entered, prepared to do the one thing everyone thought was impossible: defeat the undefeated and do it her way. The leader of the Galactic Council, Senator Threx, stood in the shadows of the observation deck, his translucent skin shimmering faintly under the overhead lights as he watched the live feed from the arena. His 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, their glowing irises narrowing with every flicker of the feed. Zara's latest victory, the one over the Siphonant, had left him perturbed. He'd been in the arena for centuries, leading his people in countless battles and overseeing the destruction of civilizations. Yet this human girl, barely more than a speck in the grand scheme of the universe, had dared to challenge everything he knew about combat, honor, and tradition. He adjusted his robes, the ceremonial fabric rustling as his mind raced through the video footage. How is she doing this? In every battle, Zara defied the conventional tactics. The Siphonant had been a creature of pure darkness, with power enough to drain the life force from entire planets, and yet Zara had beaten it by using wind, a simple fan. It wasn't even a proper weapon. It was nothing short of absurd. But there she was, victorious. He replayed the earlier match against the Baroquian war titan. The titan, a beast of legendary strength, had been toyed with by this human. A laser pointer? Threx clenched his fists, feeling the knot of confusion tightening in his chest. Zara wasn't just defeating her opponents. She was making a mockery of everything his species held dear. Zara was changing the game, and that, more than anything, terrified him. Threx had been bred for strategy and precision. His people had ruled for millennia, always adhering to the ancient ways of combat. Tradition dictated that battles were fought with honor, skill, and understanding of the deep martial arts. The strongest always won. The strongest always win. But Zara was proving that strength didn't matter. She wasn't playing by the rules at all. She was exploiting them, twisting them to her will. She had no respect for the traditions of the arena, no regard for the centuries-old codes that had defined their way of life. Instead, she fought by sheer unpredictability, making it impossible for anyone to anticipate her next move. Senator Threx's thoughts darkened. What if others, too, began to question the old ways? What if they saw Zara as an example of something new, something better, something that could make the established order obsolete? What if Zara's victories inspired more humans, more beings like her, to rise up and reject the long-held traditions? He would be powerless to stop it. "She's not just breaking the rules," Threx muttered to himself, his voice low, filled with grudging admiration. "She's rewriting them." His advisors, standing behind him, exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, an old veteran of the arena who had served for centuries, hesitated before speaking. "Senator Threx," the advisor said cautiously, Are you sure we should allow this?" Her defiance of our customs. Threx turned sharply to face him, his 6 eyes narrowing. "Of course we must allow this. The council has already decided. She will face the final test, and we will see whether she can sustain this unpredictability." But even as he said the words, doubt gnawed at him. If Zara won the final match, if she truly defeated the council's most formidable combatants, it would shatter everything. The council's ancient power, the traditions that had governed their way of life for eons. And what would that mean for the future? What would happen to his people when their rules no longer applied? Threx's claws dug into the edge of the observation platform, his frustration building. "Get the others ready," he ordered, his voice quiet but tense. This must not happen again. The advisor hesitated, but then nodded, moving quickly to carry out the command. Threx remained rooted in place, watching the feed from the arena, his eyes glued to Zara as she prepared for her next match. A part of him, a small part, wondered if the girl was the key to something greater. Perhaps this chaos she created was not just a disruption, but a new path forward, one that even his people could not foresee. But that thought was fleeting, extinguished quickly by his burning desire to preserve the old ways. Zara had already shattered the unspoken rule of their world. No one questions the traditions. But now she was about to face him. The Senate would decide her fate, and he would ensure that the traditional order would not fall. "Let's see how long your unpredictability lasts, human," he muttered darkly, staring at her confident, smiling face on the screen. "It will be your undoing." The arena was silent, the usual hum of alien chatter fading into an eerie stillness as Zara stepped into the final preparation chamber. The air around her felt thick, charged with nervous energy. Spectators from countless star systems, their forms a swirl of colors and bioluminescent patterns, filled the stadium, their eyes fixed on her every movement. She could feel their gazes piercing her, but instead of fear, it fueled her resolve. The odds were against her, but Zara knew this was her moment, her chance to change everything. Outside the arena, the screens across the galaxy were flashing, some displaying betting markets in disarray, others running emergency protocols to recalibrate their systems. "Error does not compute." Those words flashed on holographic displays in homes, casinos, and government facilities alike. No one could understand how a human girl, no formal training, no skills in the art of combat, had made it this far. But here she was, about to face the final battle, with everything on the line. Across the arena floor, Threx stood in the shadow of the massive, imposing battle platform, his 6 eyes narrowed. The ancient combatant, the leader of the Senate, had made it clear the council would not tolerate such chaos. They had expected her to fail before the final match, but Zara had proven them wrong at every turn. Each of her victories had been a strike at their established norms, a mockery of everything they held sacred in the arena. As Zara prepared, her hand shaking ever so slightly, she could hear the whispers in the stands, alien voices muttering in disbelief. Some were confused, some skeptical, but others were starting to feel something Zara didn't expect. Hope, a large, towering being from the Clystron sector, a race known for their ruthless efficiency in battle, chuckled from the stands. "This is ridiculous," the Clystron murmured to his companions. "The girl doesn't belong here. She'll fall apart when it matters most. She's just a human." Beside him, a shrewd diplomat from the Zoraxan Federation, with scales glinting in the soft light, leaned in and whispered, "If she wins, we'll be forced to reconsider our entire understanding of combat. The human chaos has defeated reason." Zara didn't hear the whispers. She couldn't afford to, but she knew what they were saying. She was breaking all the rules, and now, as she stood on the brink of the final match, she realized how much was at stake. Her every move, her every breath, was being watched not just by the galaxy's most powerful officials, but by the universe itself. Her success or failure would determine whether everything they had known about their traditions, their civilization, would crumble or evolve. Behind her, the final match was being set up, and her opponent, A cold, calculating alien warrior named Creedar stepped onto the platform. Creedar was a veteran of hundreds of arena duels, renowned for his precise, unyielding attacks. His reputation was built on centuries of ruthless tactics, and he had never been defeated. The crowd parted, giving way to his towering muscular form, his exoskeleton glinting in the arena's light. Zara's heart beat faster, but she refused to let the pressure crack her. Her eyes locked with Creedar's across the arena. He didn't even flinch as he sized her up, his expression cold and calculating. To him, she was just another opponent, and in his mind, he had already won. The officials took their places, their mechanical and organic forms blending into the background as the final preparations began. The silence in the arena grew heavier. It was now or never. The countdown began. Zara stood tall, her stance relaxed but alert, as Creedar flexed his claws in anticipation. The crowd's collective breath seemed to hang in the air, and even the officials held their breath. The final confrontation was about to begin. 5, 4, 3. Zara's fingers twitched, and her mind sharpened. She'd come this far by being unpredictable. She couldn't play by the rules now. She had to continue doing the impossible. 2, 1. The gong of the arena struck, and the final battle began. For a moment, there was stillness, the calm before the storm. Zara took a deep breath, her eyes darting between the battlefield and Creedar. Her entire body was on alert, her every sense heightened. The crowd erupted as Creedar launched himself toward her, his form moving with terrifying speed. But Zara didn't move like her opponents expected. Instead of charging in, she crouched low, pulling a small, seemingly insignificant device from her belt, a portable speaker. As Creedar's massive form lunged, she pressed a button and, to the bewilderment of the audience, blasted a loud and jarring human dance beat across the arena. The sound was ridiculous, out of place in the face of battle. Creedar paused midair, confusion flashing across his face. It was a split second, but that was all Zara needed. With a fluid movement, she rolled to the side, avoiding Creedar's strike entirely. The crowd gasped, some confused, others shocked into silence. It was the beginning of something they couldn't comprehend. Zara wasn't following any of their rules. She was making her own, and as she dodged and weaved through Creedar's brutal attacks, something in the arena shifted. Spectators, who had once jeered and doubted, started to cheer. They were starting to believe. This human girl wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting to change everything. The arena was electric, its vast expanse filled with 100,000 spectators, their eyes locked on the central stage. Zara stood at one end, her body tense, muscles coiled like a spring. Across from her, Creedar loomed, a towering figure of precision and power. His eyes were cold, unblinking, his exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of the arena. The tension between them was palpable. Zara, the unpredictable human girl who defied every expectation, and Creedar, the battle-hardened alien warrior who had never known defeat. The crowd, once unsure, now held its breath. They had seen the chaos Zara had unleashed so far. But could she truly defeat the master of tradition? The gong sounded, and with a flash of motion, Creedar surged forward, his claws extending with deadly precision. He struck with the elegance of an ancient predator. Each move calculated, each swipe a lethal extension of years of combat mastery. Zara didn't flinch. She didn't even try to evade with grace. Instead, she spun in a circle, narrowly dodging a strike, and then threw her hands into the air, shouting, "Wait! I forgot something." The audience went silent, confused. Creedar paused, a quizzical expression flickering across his face. Zara quickly pulled out a small, wrinkled notebook from her pocket, flipping it open with exaggerated flair. "Ah, yes," she said with mock seriousness. "I think I left my battle plan here somewhere." The absurdity of the moment broke through the tension. Creedar blinked in surprise, and even the officials raised an eyebrow. Without warning, Zara dropped the notebook and rolled across the floor, evading Creedar's next attack as he lunged forward in a blind rage. She jumped up, grinning, and delivered an unexpected, clumsy kick to his side. Creedar staggered but quickly regained his composure, his precision not diminished in the slightest. You think this is a joke? Creedar growled, his voice low and threatening. Maybe just a little, Zara quipped, then quickly added. But I'm still trying to figure out how to do the serious warrior thing. Does it involve coffee? The audience burst into laughter, and even Creedar paused, his expression faltering for a split second. That was all Zara needed. With a quick flick of her wrist, she pulled out a device that looked like a harmless paper fan, an inconspicuous, odd item for an arena battle. With a flick of her thumb, the fan expanded rapidly, transforming into a bizarre, oversized shield made of shimmering energy. Creedar's next strike was met with a loud clang, the force of his attack reverberating through the shield. Zara, grinning ear to ear, spun the fan like a professional dancer's prop, pushing Creedar back with each exaggerated twirl. Creedar's eyes widened in shock, his usual calculations slipping for just a moment. He was used to facing opponents who fought within the boundaries of tradition, who adhered to the code. But Zara was something entirely different. She was chaos incarnate, improvised, erratic, and unpredictable. Enough! Creedar roared, launching himself at Zara with such force that the ground beneath them cracked. He was faster now, desperate to end this humiliating fight. The final blow was inevitable, and everyone watching could feel it coming. But Zara wasn't done. She sidestepped once more, and at the last moment, she threw a strange, glowing device at Creedar's feet. It emitted a blinding flash, momentarily blinding him. The crowd gasped as Creedar stumbled, disoriented. Zara took her chance. With a single, almost lazy leap, she bounded to the top of one of the arena's large stone columns. From there, she had the perfect view of the battle, and more importantly, of Creedar's weakness, his predictable movements. As he recovered, Zara let out a sharp whistle. "Heads up, Creedar!" she called, and as he turned, she hurled a rock-sized piece of debris at him. The impact threw him off balance, and in that moment, Zara jumped. The crowd screamed as Zara dived from the top of the column, landing on Creedar's back with an ungraceful but powerful force, wrapping her legs around his torso. With a sudden, wild yank, she flipped him onto the ground. The momentum of her fall combined with the unpredictability of her approach, sending Creedar crashing into the arena floor. Silence. Then, the sound of Creedar's stunned breath broke the quiet. He lay on the ground, stunned, his body shaking from the impact. Zara stood over him, panting, her body bruised but still standing. "Guess you weren't ready for that," she said, grinning widely. For a moment, the entire arena seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Creedar to rise, for the battle to continue. But then, to everyone's shock, Creedar raised his hand in defeat. I yield," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of unexpected respect. His voice trembled slightly, but the warriors and officials in the stand saw it. Creedar, the master of precision and tradition, had been defeated not by strength but by sheer, unbridled chaos. The audience erupted. They had witnessed the impossible. Zara, the human girl, had won, and she had done it on her own terms, turning the rules of the arena upside down. Zara dusted herself off and waved at the crowd. "Told you it wasn't that hard," she called, laughing. As the crowd's cheers rang out, it was clear Zara had not just won a battle. She had shattered a tradition, leaving an indelible mark on the history of the arena. The galaxy would never be the same again. The arena was alive with thunderous applause as Zara stood victorious, her breath still coming in ragged gasps, her body bruised but triumphant. The roar of the crowd reverberated through her bones. But for a moment, all she could hear was the soft hum of her own thoughts. Zara had done it. She had faced the impossible, faced Creedar, the embodiment of tradition, the pinnacle of combat mastery, and defeated him not with strength or skill, but with the one weapon humanity had that no other species could replicate: chaos. As the officials declared her the victor, her mind drifted to the path that had brought her here. From the moment she stepped into this foreign world, she had been an anomaly, a girl from a dying planet, a symbol of humanity's fragility, their last hope. The arena had been a battleground not just for combat, but for survival, for the very idea of what it meant to be human. Zara's methods had always been unconventional, unexpected. Where others relied on rules and training, she leaned on unpredictability, creativity, and an unshakable belief that there was no right way to fight, to live, to exist. It was what had gotten her this far, what had gotten her to this moment. As Creedar slowly rose to his feet, his towering form still shaken from defeat, Zara approached him, her heart a strange mixture of elation and contemplation. The battle was over, but the true challenge was only beginning. Creedar, his eyes once cold and calculating, now held a flicker of something new, something Zara had never expected. Respect. You broke the rules, Creedar said, his voice low but not without awe. Zara smirked, crossing her arms. Did I? I thought I just redefined them. He paused and chuckled, a deep, resonant sound that echoed in the quiet arena. Perhaps you are right. Perfection doesn't leave room for evolution. His gaze softened, and Zara could see the wheels turning in his mind. Maybe it's time for tradition to change. The crowd had quieted, sensing the shift. The great Creedar, undefeated for centuries, had been bested not by raw power, but by the unpredictable spirit of a human girl. A spirit that had disrupted not just a match, but an entire way of thinking. Zara's victory wasn't just her own. It was humanity's declaration that they could stand up, that they could bring something new to the table. Zara smiled softly, wiping the sweat from her brow. Exactly. Rules aren't limits. They're opportunities. The crowd's applause returned, louder now, as if echoing the sentiment that had rippled through every corner of the arena. Zara had not just won. She had sparked a revolution. No longer would the galaxy's combat arenas be ruled by the cold precision of tradition. Now, there was a new path, one where chaos, unpredictability, and innovation could thrive. As Zara made her way off the stage, she glanced up at the sky, the vast expanse of stars stretching out before her. Earth was a distant memory now, but her heart swelled with something unexpected, hope. Humanity's future wasn't defined by the past or by what was expected. It was something new, something wild. She wasn't just the last girl on Earth. She was proof that even the smallest spark could ignite change. Zara paused, staring out into the cosmos, as the galaxy watched her, waiting for the next unpredictable move. What now? She whispered to herself, a grin tugging at the corners of her lips. And then she said aloud, almost to the stars themselves, now we see what humanity can really do. The galaxy, still buzzing from her victory, would never be the same again as the applause began to fade into the distance. Zara stood at the edge of the arena, looking out over the vast expanse of the galaxy. Her victory had set something in motion, a ripple that would spread far beyond the confines of this world, beyond the combat arenas, beyond the expectations of the cosmos. She knew that what she had done was just the beginning. The crowd was still cheering, but her mind was already racing. The universe had seen humanity's potential. The last girl on Earth had proven that even in the face of extinction, they were capable of bending the rules, of thinking outside of the box, of bringing chaos where there had only been order. Her victory had not just shaken Creedar, or the galaxy's ancient combat traditions. It had sparked curiosity. It had opened doors to what could be an entirely new chapter for humanity's role in the universe. No longer just survivors, humans had proven that they were innovators, disruptors, and now they were going to be watched. Zara turned, her eyes scanning the horizon. Far in the distance, the lights of the distant planets flickered. A network of systems waiting to see how humanity would play at hand. Let's see what happens when the galaxy realizes humanity isn't just a side note, Zara whispered to herself. Then, with a small, determined smile, she spoke to the comms device that buzzed quietly at her side. Tell Earth to get ready. I'll need a team for the next one. In the far reaches of the galaxy, other worlds were already beginning to take notice. Some were skeptical, others were intrigued. But one thing was certain, humanity's future was just getting started. And if Zara had anything to say about it, the universe wouldn't know what hit it. The countdown to the next challenge had begun. Just wait, she said, as her voice echoed into the unknown. We're coming. Across the galaxy, a ripple of nervous energy spread. No one knew exactly what humanity would do next, but they knew one thing for sure. The game had changed if you enjoyed this journey. Don't forget to subscribe for more exciting adventures. Also, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think and what you'd love to see next. Your thoughts make the story even more thrilling.